pregnancy, I think of, oh, you can eat this, you can eat this, you should be eating more. If I eat more, will she get bigger? Like, is that how it works? Oh my God, I'm not gonna be able to travel. I'm not gonna have my flexibility. Should I actually be lifting weights whilst I'm pregnant? Should I just give up and stop working out in general? It feels like you're gonna die. And I'm like, ah.
Really?
Felt like I was dying. And I was like, oh my God.
I can't imagine a life where I'm like, screw it, I'm not going to train anymore. I don't want to give up my freedom. I started seeing my colleagues on the gym floor having kids, but never seeing them, because the personal trainer's life is 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. with no control of your diary. We're not just husband and wife. We're now like mother and father as well.
Yeah. The training and nutrition has been a game changer for me. I haven't experienced any cravings,
I had to personalize the pitch for you.
What was the pitch?
The pitch was pregnancy.
I'm amazed as to what the female body can do. You've got this vision of me, you, and our daughter in Muay Thai camp in Thailand, right?
Yeah. It's
there
gonna
you
happen.
go.
It's
That's
gonna
gonna
happen.
happen. That's our future trip sorted.
You ready?
I am ready. I'm excited. I'm ready, and I just can't wait for this.
Today I'm joined by my wife, Chandni Vaghela, who's in the studios with me to talk all about the pregnancy journey, what it's been like so far, some of the myths that we've managed to squash during our own pregnancy with regards to training, nutrition, mindset. So in this episode, we're going to dive into the pregnancy journey so far, a little bit about my upcoming Muay Thai fight, and all things to do with the growing Vaghela team. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoy this episode. 33 today.
Yes, it's my birthday.
And also 33 weeks pregnant.
Yes.
Is that baby's birthday?
Yeah, baby's birthday.
What have been some of the biggest myths you found squashed during this pregnancy so far?
Ooh, so before being pregnant, all I kept hearing is women gaining a lot of weight, and women saying, oh, we can eat more because we're eating for two, there's another human there, and things around. I still get that from people, from my family as well, around, you can't bend over, or you can't do certain things, and you're restricted a little way when you're pregnant. And I'd always had that in my mind, around, okay, well, what can I eat? And how I just thought I'm just going to balloon up, as everybody else tends to say they do. And that's been some of the biggest myths, I'd say, based on the weight gain, nutrition, and training, which I found have not really applied to me or to my pregnancy. And I think it's just the way people perceive it. And that's a big myth that I think that's...
Well, what were some of the perceptions that you were hearing? Because, you've got some friends and family who, in a similar sort of age bracket, probably like early 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, who've had kids. And you were kind of being fed some of those stories, which I'd always sort of roll my eyes at. But maybe just talk to some of them, talk to about some of them, because I think they're still very prevalent.
Yeah. I mean, what I would say is that every woman has their own experience in pregnancy, right? So some women get a lot of morning sickness, and there's nothing that they can control with that. That just tends to happen. I've been very fortunate that I haven't quite experienced any of those symptoms, which has, I guess, helped me maintain my pregnancy and have a happy, healthy pregnancy as well. But some of the things which I heard from cousins and friends in the past who have had kids have pretty much just been like, oh my God, like I just put on a lot of weight, and it just piles on. Even if you try and eat well, it just keeps piling on, and the tiredness kicks in, and you can't walk at this stage, and you can't do anything. And it just made me feel like restriction around pregnancy. And I always wondered, because I'd heard all this around, okay, well, how am I going to be? How's it going to impact me? And I remember you always said, you'll be fine, don't worry. Like, I know what you're like, you're going to be fine. But hearing all this, I mean, we went to Christmas lunch last year with a couple of my family, with my cousins, and a couple of them were talking about their pregnancy. And I was just like, oh my God. Like one of them was like, it feels like you're going to die. And I'm like, ah.
Really?
Yeah, I remember she was like, it felt like I was dying. And I was like, oh my God. And this is just the perception that and I'm sure that was how she felt at the time, but it's the perception that I'd have around, okay, what is pregnancy actually like? So I had to almost rewire my mindset around it. And that's what we've been working on in terms of the courses that we're doing, the hypnobirthing, for example, speaking to the midwives. I know you've been heavily a part of it as well. I think your thinking is quite different in general anyway towards pregnancy, which has helped me see a different perspective on pregnancy. around the weight gain piece and around the nutrition piece. And
well, what sort of things have I been saying? Because I'm probably doing it subconsciously. What sort of things have I been saying that?
Are. Like because
I've never sat there and thought, let me tell you this.
No, I think it just comes out naturally. So one of the things I'd say is when we first met, I didn't really go to the gym. I never really worked out. I was very happy with the way I looked, and I thought, that's it. I'm happy with the way I look. I don't need fitness. I don't need training. I don't need nutrition. I didn't even know what macros were. I knew nothing. Yeah. And then you came into my life and you're working out, doing your thing, eating well. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And I remember you always used to say, you know, it's not about me. You never really pressured me to do it, but you always said, it's going to help you in the long run. It's going to help you with things like pregnancy. It's going to help you with things like aging. It's going to prepare your body as you're getting older. Your muscles will be stronger. You're going to be fitter. This is just going to help you in that. It's not an aesthetics thing for me specifically. And I remember hearing that and I was like, oh yeah, whatever. I saw, like, I feel good. I look good. Like I'm good. I'm good with how I am. And then probably 2 years in is when I started like, okay, maybe I will join RNT. And I joined RNT, and you tell me all the benefits again of what it could bring. And I felt them at the time. And obviously at that time, it's not like I was preparing for pregnancy or anything. But one of the things that it's really helped me with the training and the nutrition that I've kind of accumulated over the last 2 years of being on the program is preparing for pregnancy without even knowing it. And you're there telling me like, yeah, you know, training, it's going to help you with your pregnancy. As soon as we started getting more closer towards thinking around families and our future. And it honestly has helped me. Like I can't see me doing anything differently. I don't touch wood, have any like back pains as of yet. The weight gain isn't as much as I'd expected it to be. Like it's very in line with the growth of our child. And it's just helped me. And I think things like that, you always keep me in check. And I
had to personalize the pitch for you.
Oh my God, what was the pitch?
Well, the pitch was pregnancy.
Yeah, because when I think about it, like I know I wanted kids. When we met, we wanted kids. Like that's normal. That's something that we've always wanted. But then it's like, okay, well, how do I best prepare myself in that? And I never even thought of that. You opened my mind to that, and you opened my mind to all the possibilities of what I could do with pregnancy. And it doesn't have to be how we see it on TV. It doesn't have to be what I've heard from my family or my cousins or whoever. It's how I want it to be. I can dictate my own pregnancy through the actions that I take, whether it's before getting pregnant, even during pregnancy as well.
Well, just on the before pregnancy, just so for some context for the listeners, is what I was always saying to you is, yes, you have a great body, and you know you're one of the few intuitive eaters I've ever known in my life.
I didn't even
like
know
I
what
met
that was.
you, and I was always I always wondered. I remember I used to say to you, I was like, oh, you know, you tracking your calories, are you tracking your steps, are you going to the gym? And you're like, no, I don't even know what they are. I don't even know what macros are. And then I just realized you're a very intuitive eater. Who knows how to auto-regulate your food, and I think I've never really met anyone who can do that off the bat or naturally. But then there was the missing piece of weight training, and whilst I think you took it on from more just seeing me do it and trying it from there. I think I did remember saying to you a few times, I was like, for when we do want to start a family, it will really help your ability to be pregnant in a comfortable way, because you're going to be stronger, your core's going to be stronger, your back's going to be stronger. You're going to be able to handle the load better. You're going to be able to go through the experience better, but also your recovery. And there's so much. I've seen it so many times where women who are fit, strong, and healthy before pregnancy always have. There's obviously going to be outliers. We don't know what's going to happen, but as a general rule, they have a healthier pregnancy, an easier pregnancy, but especially they have an easier recovery because they can bounce back quicker. And the other benefit is you've built a lot of habits, structures, strategies, systems into your day. So when the chaos comes after, they're inbuilt into you. And recently we had someone join RNT who actually joined during her pregnancy. And it was probably the first time I've seen that happen, because for me, that was like, wow, this is the time to do it. I mean, obviously the best time would have been before pregnancy, but the next best time is during pregnancy, because she said to me, I'm worried I'm not going to see a physical change, so I'm worried I might be demotivated. And I said to her, well, actually, you're going to be able to build really, really good habits now You're going to be able to be healthier. You're going to learn healthy cooking. You're going to learn how to exercise. Luckily, she'd already done some exercise before. So when the chaos of no structure, baby, erratic schedules, you'd already had those foundational habits. When you're trying to build habits on a shaky foundation, it's very difficult, right? When you don't know when you're going to sleep, you don't know what's going to happen in your life, right? You don't have a clue, right? And we don't really know. There's a big unknown there. But what we do have is basic habits, and we know what feeling good is. We know this makes us feel good. This is normal. Eating protein regularly is normal. Going to the gym is normal. So we'll make time and find ways to build that in. But I think if you're coming at it after, it can become very difficult. So to circle back to like why I mentioned that is because I knew the case studies behind them just from people I'd worked with, but also just the research behind it. I always thought that was the one thing we needed to make sure was into your sort of daily routine, and then you picked it up at the perfect time.
Yeah, because I remember when I first started RNT, it wasn't about okay, let's prep for pregnancy. It was just, hey, get fit and strong, and I was like, okay, let's give this a go. And then it became, okay, let's get fit and strong for pregnancy.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's just been a game changer because I've learned so much about nutrition and the right things to eat. Don't get me wrong, it's very flexible in what I'm eating, but it's more the right nutritious food items that I should be eating at that time, and especially now during pregnancy, that it's helped me with. And I still remember the conversation with you, and then it kind of switched to pregnancy and preparing for pregnancy. And I thought to myself, I was still skeptical. I was still thinking, okay, should I be eating the same way and should I be training the same? Remember I said to you, I was like, should I actually be lifting weights whilst I'm pregnant? And in my mind, obviously subconsciously, you're just thinking you're carrying a child. My body's trying to make a child. And at the same time, I'm trying to lift all these heavy weights. You don't see that in the movies. You don't see that in programs. You don't hear many women talking about that, I'm just squatting this and I'm deadlifting 60, 70 kg whilst I'm 30 weeks pregnant. And this was a huge myth for me because I was thinking, how can I maintain that? Like, should I just give up and stop working out in general? And that's where you were giving me the advice and your 2 cents worth and being like, no, this is what you should be doing. And I remember the first ever appointment we had with the midwife, and me being me, I was like, okay, I hear what Akash is saying, but I also need to just confirm everything with her. And the 2 things which I remember her saying to me are, yeah, of course you can continue weight training. And I was like, oh, so I can still deadlift this amount. I can still do all these exercises with these weights. Yeah, of course. She said, you need to continue as you are. Just because you're having a baby, just because you're growing a baby, your life shouldn't change in any way. Just don't start something new. So I've never ran, let's just say. So I'm not going to start running is the example she was giving. But in terms of weight training, she was like, continue, crack on. You can lift what you want. And I was like,
yeah, I was shocked.
You're the one telling. How are you shocked? You're the one saying, yeah, continue. And
I was shocked that because for some reason I thought that this was being pushed a lot by the nurses, the midwives.
I see. Yeah.
I thought that's what people were getting told. I didn't realize that, when she said you don't need to eat for 2, keep training, and you're completely fine. If you want to raise a plant-based kid, that's completely fine. And all these things, I was just sitting there like, oh wow, like the times have really changed. But also, these myths aren't coming from here. And that was really good to hear. And I think the thing she said around nothing new was really important. And that's why it's important to start training before pregnancy, because the one rule that is very important is you don't introduce new things.
Yeah.
So if you've never weight trained before, you don't really want to be starting too much during the pregnancy.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to do anything new before, and then during just adapt a few things. So for example, you won't do hip thrusts.
Yeah.
You won't put a bar on your pelvis for obvious reasons. You don't want to, compress the baby.
Exercises, chest press, and everything.
Yeah, and then now lying down exercises are uncomfortable. Chest supported exercises are uncomfortable. And there's a few things you just don't want to do because for obvious reasons. But the overall premise of squatting, deadlifting, rows, 1-arm rows. You do 1-arm rows still?
Yeah, I do.
1-arm rows, cable rows, pull downs, shoulder presses. Like these are all fine. And you may need to reduce the weight. That's fine. Like you don't need to go as heavy. And I think I even said to you, I was like, you don't need to try and set PBs now.
Yeah, I know.
Like even if because the good thing with the body is it's hard to build muscle and strength. It's easy to maintain it. So even if you just go 80%, like you're still going to get all the gains that for someone where you're at right now are going to need. So you don't need to go as hard. You don't need to train yourself to the absolute max. But I've heard of some crazy stories of people, of like Olympic weightlifters and people training all the way up to pregnancy, and then they're having the baby and then continuing afterwards. But those people are trained like for years and years and years and years. So for you, like even just backing off a little bit of the intensity can make all the difference and just keep you training and strong. Because we know it's so easy you can easily lose it though. It's easy to maintain, but it's easy to lose as well.
Yeah. I've taken all of that on board and I've continued with my strength. In fact, I was in the gym yesterday. I was like, oh, I did lower my weight slightly and I was like, I was getting a bit light now. And I remember speaking to Ivan, my coach in the cohort, and telling him where I'm at. And he was like, I gave him all the weights that I'm lifting. And he was like, I mean, you could go a bit heavier on there. 'Cause I know you can. And I was like, okay. So yesterday I was lifting and I was like, this is a bit light. Like just because I'm pregnant, I don't want to fall back into that trap of maybe.
No.
And then I just added a few more plates. And I was like, okay, this is not too bad. Like I can still do it. And then I came home, I was like, oh my God, I deadlifted this. And I was like, maybe next week I'll add on another 2.5 kilos on each side or 5 kilos. And you were like, yeah, go for it. Like it's fine. And I have regular checkups with the midwife who's very happy with the progress, with the growth, with everything. And she's, again, never said, don't stop training. It's almost encouraging me. She's like, yeah, continue with everything you're doing. Continue walking, continue training, continue eating as you are. And you said the eating for two, which was a huge one, because for me, I was just, again, when I think of pregnancy, I think of, oh, you can eat this, you should be eating more. And I still have the questions around, well, if my baby is growing she's a little small, then if I eat more, will she get bigger? Like, is that how it works? And the midwife is like, no, you just continue eating as you are. Like your baby's growing as she will. You don't need to eat more. If you're eating more, you're just going to get bigger. It's not the baby that's going to get bigger. And I was like, oh, okay, cool.
That's a trap a lot of people fall into.
Yeah.
I've seen like people that have kids and they balloon up 20, 30 kilos and then they have the baby and they're still 20, 30 kilos overweight because they've just gained loads and loads of body fat in that process.
Yeah. But again, everyone's pregnancy is very individual and I haven't experienced any cravings. Every time I meet people, it's the same questions around how's the pregnancy, how's the bump, how's the food, how's the cravings, do you get any? And I haven't had any cravings, but then it comes back down to what you were saying with RNT program that I was on. It's given me such a good foundation in terms of routine for my training, for eating certain meals, cooking, recipes, everything that I've needed to set myself up for success.
Yeah.
And it's really kind of come in and it's made me realize like, wow, everything I was doing, I can just continue during pregnancy. I've literally just continued my life as it is. We've been traveling a lot. It's absolutely fine.
Well, if you think about having a baby is like the most natural thing a human can do.
Yeah.
So it only makes sense that to improve the quality of the pregnancy, to improve fertility, obviously I'm not a fertility doctor or anything like that. So I can't give exact, I don't know the exact advice on this, but to me, logically, it makes sense that for something as natural as a pregnancy, the healthier you are in the build up to it, the easier it should technically be during the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be stronger. You're going to be, there's going to be more nourishment inside.
Yeah.
And your mind will be clearer. And I think a lot of it, we were talking about this, and I think even if there's the body is one thing, but also working on the mind before pregnancy, I think is really important because your ability to adapt to certain situations that pregnancy will throw at you and the natural challenges that will bring with it, your response to that stress will be different. If you typically respond to stress by eating a lot of food and, you probably won't be drinking alcohol, but let's say eating a lot of food is one of your crutches and you still have that crutch there during pregnancy, that's when you probably will balloon up because you are going to have days where you're tired. You've had days where you're tired.
Yeah, absolutely.
You've had days where it's challenging and,
Yeah.
It's very easy to normally comfort yourself with food. So I think if you can work on a lot of these things beforehand and get yourself in the best possible place before pregnancy, it can really help. And it's just like that parenting. Someone gave me advice that a year ago. I remember they said to me, like, you want to work on all your shit before the baby arrives so then you don't just portray or defect it onto the baby in the future.
So true.
And I remember that really landed with me. I was like, right, I've got to force myself to get through all this muck and shit in my head to make sure I'm in the best possible place mentally for the baby so I can give my best when it arrives.
But from a mental perspective, what I would also say is I've been really, really, I guess, lucky that you've been so supportive throughout my journey. Because as you said, it's not all been like plain sailing. There have been challenges. I've been tired on days like when I'm supposed to be working or in meetings. I'm like, oh my God, I just need to sleep, especially in the early days in the first trimester. There was a lot of a lot of long naps like throughout the day when I'm like, oh, I've got a meeting, but I need to be napping and I'm just so tired. And even now, like we're walking and I get out of breath a lot more quicker, right? Like we're walking and you're walking ahead and you're like, oh, okay, you're still behind. I'm like, yeah, I'm out of breath. Like I just need to slow down my pace. And it's natural because I'm carrying more weight. So it is challenging. I have put on weight and that's absolutely fine. I'm growing a baby at the same time. And it's just helped that you've been really, really supportive throughout the journey. And you've always been there, encouraged me. There's been times when I'm like, oh, I'm really tired. I don't think I want to go for a walk, or I don't think I'm going to go to the gym. And you're just there like, but you're going to feel better after it. So, do you want to go? Like you make me kind of see the other side of it. And I'm like, okay, come on. And you're like, I'm going. So why don't we go together? And I'm like, okay, cool. And then we go. And then I come back and I'm like full of energy. Like, oh, this is amazing. Like, I'm really glad I went. But how have you found the last 33 weeks? Because people also ask you, right? For me, it's just something I'm going through. But as the partner / father to be, like, how are you finding it?
Interestingly, I don't think much about the baby. Like just being completely honest, I don't think much about becoming a dad. I feel like maybe it's because I have some very clear goals that I'm peaking towards in the next month before pregnancy. Yeah. But even then, I don't really think about it unless I see you or I see the bump, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I'm having a baby. I think initially when I first found out, I was like, oh shit, I've got to sort this out. But there was nothing actually to sort out. Like I didn't need to change anything in my life. And then after like a few days, I was like, well, I know it's going to be difficult. I know I'm a precious sleeper. I don't use an alarm clock. I sleep 8-9 hours a night.
10.
Sometimes 10. And I know it's going to be difficult, but I was like, well, I don't really see my life changing in any way in a sense of I'm not going to stop doing things I love doing. And I think I've always been very deliberate and intentional with things I do in my life. So for me, whilst I have no idea what's going to come from April, at the same time, I can't imagine a life where I'm like, screw it, I'm not going to train anymore. I'm going to eat crap all day. I'm not going to work hard anymore. Like for me, these aren't even up for debate. It's just going to be a figuring out, all right, how's this going to work? Because whilst we have a lot of people who tell me, oh yeah, get your sleep in or get your travel in before the baby arrives, or, all these things that I hear and I just really shrug off, to be honest. I also know a few people, friends of ours, who continue to build their business, who continue to pursue their fitness goals, who continue to travel. And one of them said to me, Ian, he said to me, well, raising a baby is going to be difficult anyway, so you might as well just do what you want at the same time. I remember reading that and thinking, that's spot on. That's exactly like that's exactly the approach that I want us to take, because we love to travel, we love to build business, and I especially love extreme physical challenge. And I only ever have 3 priorities in my life anyway: business, family, and fitness. So it's just going to be a case of, rather than it just being you as that priority as family, it'll be the baby as well. So I think we'll just, in my head, that's the way I'm sort of thinking about it at the moment anyway. Who knows? This could be completely irrelevant. It could be all over the shop in a month's time. And there probably will be an element of that as well, like a complete readjustment, complete new life. But I'm not coming into it like scared or thinking, oh man, what's going to happen? Life's is all over now. I've not got any of those thoughts. It's more just, okay, this is a really cool addition to our life.
Absolutely.
We get to share our knowledge and experience with a new person. And I always joke saying, there's only 2 things I want to teach this baby: teach them martial arts and fitness, and then teach them entrepreneurship and business.
Yep.
If I can do those 2 things, I'll be very happy.
And I'm on the other end. I want to teach him how to play the piano, and I want her to do dancing, and I want her to just be in good spirits and be happy and have fun and travel.
Yeah, exactly. And so I don't really think about it much, but I think that's potentially quite normal as a guy. I don't really know. Because we don't really go through this stuff, right? We don't go through the physical. There's no physical change I'm experiencing, am I? Except for being battered and bruised from Muay Thai, but that's got nothing to do with the baby.
But have you experienced anything from me? Because I know that as the woman going through this, obviously there's ups, downs, challenges we talked about. I've heard of things, some of my friends or cousins who have talked about like emotions, or they get emotional, or mood swings or stuff like that. Is there anything that you kind of...
To be honest, I've not really noticed it. And I think it's probably because you you've been doing a lot of work mentally to make sure you're in a good place.
Yeah.
And for example, the hypnobirthing, which is again is another like myth buster for me. When I listen to some of the stuff that they're talking about, I'm like, wow, this is so different to what I expect. My image of birth is like, I think it's like Phoebe in Friends with her legs, 2 legs up, screaming, screaming, punching everyone in sight. Like that's the thing I've always thought of it as. And then when we're watching this hypnobirthing course, they're talking about being, a meditative experience, very soothing, natural, just let the baby come out. Obviously, we don't know if that's going to be the case. It could be whatever, right? Yeah. But the mindset going into it is very different than thinking, oh shit, this is going to be, I'm going to be passing out in the delivery room. That's what you hear again, right?
Yeah.
So that's been a lot of myth busting, and it's been interesting, like sort of going through the journey of that and just sort of understanding, what birth is about and how it could be approached. Of course, we'll see how it goes, but that's sort of like where I've been at with the last sort of 6 months or so.
I feel like you've handled it really well. You've connected with me and the baby as you should. Like, I feel very connected with the baby, and I know she's good. I know she's happy. Like, I know she's just doing her little thing. But I feel like you've been really supportive for us as well. And not that I've needed as much support like from you, let's say, but you're always there. You're always encouraging me and kind of keeping me on track, which is really, really, really helpful. Well,
part of me is like, I know I need to level up to provide that support. But at the same time, my biggest fear is like the not connecting. So I'm not a very emotional person. And the fear I have often, it comes in my head every now and then, as I think, how am I going to be with a baby? Am I going to connect? And it's, again, this is something that I don't really hear often. But maybe it's a natural fear to have. But I feel, I wonder what that connection is going to be like.
Yeah.
And it's just the natural fear that comes in my head every now and then. I don't know if it's a fear or if it's a worry or if it's just a natural part of the process. Yeah.
I definitely think it's natural. Like, it's something that I've also considered, because I hear of things such as postnatal depression. I know of people who have been through that and what they experience. Like, it's a disconnect with your baby, essentially.
Yeah.
And you kind of feel like, it's an overwhelmed disconnect. You're kind of like, this little human is taking over my life, because before I could just go out for a walk and do what I wanted, but now I'm very dedicated to this little human. And I think we've talked about this as well. It's a natural thought.
If you remember, like before we got pregnant, my hesitancy before like saying, right, I think it's time to try, my hesitancy was, I don't want to give up my freedom. And I don't want to give up my lifestyle. And I was like, I don't know if I want to, I don't know about babies. I don't know if I want to give up this lifestyle I have, this freedom I have, because whilst I don't really do much outside of the things I do, which is work and train and things like that, it's all on my own terms, right? I don't have to worry about anyone else.
Yeah.
I get up when I like, change the routine if I like, go for a walk whenever I want to, train whenever I want to. And it doesn't really matter, right? There's no other consideration apart from you, but you're a grown adult, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing.
I never my biggest fear was like, losing that flexibility. But then it kind of, the thought process evolved. And this was all during that time I was dieting, right? Last year when I was going through this process of my road to vegan shredded. And then the process evolved to, I've always wanted kids. The reason I started RNT was actually to make sure I could stay in the fitness industry whilst being an active dad. Because if you remember, the reason I started RNT was because I started seeing my colleagues on the gym floor having kids, but never seeing them, because the personal trainer's life is 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. with no control of your diary. So then I had to remember like why I was doing this in the first place. And I was like, well, this was the whole reason for it. This is all a fear in my own head. I can make it work if I want to make it work. And then I sort of figured out in my head. And then the other thing was like, I don't know if I'll be able to grow the business anymore. Again, another irrational fear that entered my head. And then I started speaking to entrepreneurs who'd had young families, and they said to me, your business will do better than ever, because now there's no more time to waste chasing shiny objects or doing, wasting time or being busy for the sake of it, or just taking a long time to do things. You've got a baby now, so you have to focus. You've got a limited time to work. You need to get it in, get it done, and you'll be so focused because you have more responsibility, but also because now you've got a future to think about. So you make better decisions. And I thought, okay, that's a good sell. I can get into that. And it made sense to me. And once I came over those irrational fears of losing my flexibility and losing the ability to work, it became a no-brainer. Then I said to you, all right, it's time.
I remember that very clearly as well. But before that, I was in the whole, oh my God, I'm not going to be able to travel. I'm not going to have my flexibility. I was in that camp.
Yeah.
And you're actually the one who was like, no, we'll just continue on. Like, why? Let's not think like that. It doesn't mean our lives are completely over, no matter what we hear from other people, because we'll make of it what we want to make of it. And that made me think twice around, yeah, you're right. I've always wanted kids. Like, I know I want kids. So why wait? And it almost just fell into place at the right time. And I think we'll make it work as best as we can for us in the situation that we're in. And one thing I was going to say is you have got a lot of different things that you're juggling right now. And even now I'm just like, how are you doing everything? You're trying to grow the business. Obviously there's me, there's family, there's training, Muay Thai, fights coming up, potential marathons that you're going to run, like all this stuff that you're doing, which is fine for now because you are still on your own schedule. There's not as much kind of support needed in the household, let's say. But when the baby does arrive, how are you planning on actually juggling all of those things? Because they're things that you really want to do. They're your priorities, right?
Yeah. And there's probably a few elements to this answer. The first is right now, it feels quite intense. So it does feel very intense, like pushing on. Like normally, I say there's 3 priorities, but only one can take the top spot. Right now, I feel like all 3 are like pushing, competing for that top spot. And I'm really pushing things to the limit on all 3 of them. And it does feel like a mental load. And it's probably because, with this fight that I'm preparing for, there's a lot of fear of the unknown wrapped around that. And just fear and nerves. Because I'm getting in a ring with someone who wants to beat the absolute daylights out of me. And whilst I want to do the same to him, you don't know how it's going to go, right? A fight can be so unpredictable. One bad shot, it could be over. There's so many unpredictable layers. And whilst I've trained and given everything I can to it with the running, the training, the pad work, all of that stuff, whilst I'm doing everything I can, you still don't know what's going to happen on the night. And now we're recording this 2 weeks away from the fight. And there's just always this constant, it's always in the back of my mind now, I've got a fight in 2 weeks. So that fills up the stress cup to a limit already. And then there's all the projects I want to do in the business. And then there's the element of, I still want to, we have to, nurture the relationship that we have, because that's really important to me, and giving quality time and having quality time. So it feels often like there's so much to take on and think about. It can be overwhelming, and it has been overwhelming. Like I can feel my body breaking down. I feel like I'm starting to feel quite exhausted, but I know I've just got a couple of weeks more to push. And the crazy thing is, after that happens, the baby's coming in a few weeks after.
Yep.
So how do I plan to continue doing this? I don't think I can live in another way, really. I think I really enjoy, whilst I'm saying, it's tiring and all that, I think I'm really enjoying life right now, because I am doing things I really love. So the way I see it happening is just using all the principles I've built in the last couple of years, like having structure, planning my weeks, communicating with you, saying, look, this is what I want to do. Can you support me with it? This is what I'll do to help you, give you the space you need. I think that's the only way, really, because the reality is our identities are going to be not crushed, but they're going to be conflicted, right? Suddenly, we're not just husband and wife, whatever we want to call ourselves. We're now like mother and father as well.
Yeah.
Where we've got to look after another human. So our egos are now crushed, and we don't have, we're not the center of our worlds anymore. Yeah. We've got someone else to look after who completely reliant on us.
Yeah.
So I guess it's wanting to still live with my priorities, but understanding where a force that can be completely unpredictable may compete with it. But I also know too many people that have done it really well, and that gives me inspiration to make it happen. I don't know if that answers the question or not.
It does. And I'm seeing more and more of the ones who have really made it work as well. And it gives me, again, a different perspective. And we've actually met up with a few of our couple friends over the last few months. And it's just so nice hearing how they've been with their child, or even hearing the stories of their labor and their birth compared to other people who I've heard of. And it's so much more smooth and calm, but because they're in that right mindset, they prepared accordingly for their birth, and even for after birth, like for the dad, for example, for the mum. So they're in a good place, but obviously it's going to be challenging. And I'm in a weird way, like I'm actually really excited about things such as even the birth. Like I'm really excited for the birth, especially after watching the hypnobirthing course. You've touched on it. I'm amazed as to what the female body can do. And I'm really looking forward to experiencing that. It's really strange. Like I don't feel afraid of birth. I feel excited. I feel like, wow, I'm going to get to meet this little human who's been kicking me. She's kicking me at the moment, and she's going to come out and we get to hang out with her and like nurture her and see her. I'm just like visualizing what she's going to look like. I think there's a whole mindset I have around the birth itself, but more so even afterwards, I feel really excited about what's to come. I know, sleepless nights is what I hear a lot of, and that's pretty much what 100% guaranteed. But I think we'll make it work, like as you said. And it's just the way of life. And I feel like what you've been doing and what I've learned through RNT program and through my own life, we're setting ourselves up the best that we can in order to prepare for this.
Well, I've noticed a commonality in those who enjoy the experience versus those who think, children are the end of the world, or like the end of their lives. They can't do anything. They can't travel anymore. They can't pursue anything. And it really just comes down to framing and the way you think of the whole situation. It's not a situation. It's just the next chapter, right? That is the bottom line, right? And the ones who we've met who really enjoy the experience just have that mindset. And that to me has been something, I have a few people in mind who I'm like, yeah, those people I want to aspire. They're like aspiring role models as young parents, because they've continued to look after themselves physically, mentally. They continue to pursue fitness goals, continue to pursue career and business goals, and they're really active and present parents as well. So that combination as a whole is something that I think we've seen real life myth busting, and that's just for us to sort of go through their experience now.
Yeah, I can have a think of those people as well in my mind. And when I think of, more so I relate obviously to the women, but hearing their stories and even what they're like now, and I'm just like, wow, it's really inspiring, and it can be done. It's just dependent on not just the woman itself, but also the support and everything surrounding it, the recovery, the actual birth itself. I just don't know what's going to happen during that process and what the recovery is going to be like. It's just an unknown area for me. Right now I've experienced the pregnancy, which has been, again, touch wood, happy days, but who knows what's to come. It's a very unknown, unpredictable thing. All I can do is just best prepare, and same for you. But it's interesting you say that, because the other day I was speaking to my family and friends and cousins and stuff, and I was like, okay, let's get in all the socials that we can before the baby arrives. I was just, we've got plans every single weekend and days during the week just to hang out and do all this stuff that I want to do. And then they were all like, why are we doing everything before the baby comes? Like, it's fine. When the baby's here, we'll just bring her along, or she can then come and hang out with us, or we'll just come to you. Like, why are you saying let's do it before? And I was like, that's actually a really good point. When the baby is here, we're still going to hang out. We're still going to do everything. They'll still come over. We'll still meet for dinner. We'll still meet for lunch. Like, everything's going to continue as is. Or in my head, I just think it will. That's the plan.
Yeah.
So with everything in mind of what we've just talked about, what advice would you give to other couples? Because we've had a lot of advice from other people around pregnancy and around babies arriving and what to do and all this kind of stuff. So what would you say to others?
I would say, don't overthink your irrational fears, because most of the fears that you have around pregnancy are probably irrational in your own head. Like I had the ones I had. And I would say get into the best shape of your life before pregnancy, before getting pregnant. And then, for the guys, they may want to do it during the pregnancy itself. But for the women especially, get really healthy, strong, fit before getting pregnant. And then during the pregnancy, continue to train, continue to eat well, and continue to work on your mindset so you can have a smooth pregnancy. Those would be the things I've sort of picked up in, and they don't feel like things I've necessarily Like they're not new things, but they sound quite obvious.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still don't think it's done. I don't think I've not seen many. I just don't think it's. I still think there's a message that needs to get put out there in that your life doesn't need to end when you get pregnant, and your nutrition habits should still be really good, because you're going to hear a lot of older people, especially, who will say to you, "Eat this, eat that," impose that their myths that they may have had from back in the day, or traditions onto you, which I think a lot of them are unhealthy. And so I think it's important that we use this generation to break some of those and instill better habits, so the experience of pregnancy is much better. What about yourself?
I say to mimic some of that, but from my experiences around the training and nutrition has been a game changer for me. So and it's really interesting, because now when I see my friends or whoever I see, it's a woman, I'm just like, oh, you don't train? Get training, because you want a family, you're going to be pregnant at some point. Start training now. Like, that's my thing that I say. And they're like, oh, okay. And I just cannot believe how much it's helped me, and how much it's given me the right structure. It's given me the right strength, everything that I've needed to help carry this child in terms of training. And then from a nutrition perspective, again, the learning everything about it through the program, through the RNT program, it's really helped me get my structure in place for what I want to eat and what I should be eating. But more so, when I've been reading pregnancy books, and I love reading, so I've read a lot of books, many of them talk about what you should be eating during pregnancy. It doesn't give you a meal plan, but it gives you rough kind of ideas. And when I read these books, I think of, oh, wow, this is exactly what I am eating. This is exactly, and I've been trained to eat like that, essentially. Like, I've been doing it for the last 2-3 years, and it's such a natural habit.
Well, let's give some key practical advice. Like, what things are they saying that you think, oh, this is really good? And also, like, maybe give an example day in the life of eating for you.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things I'd say is every book I've read has said it gives you a range of protein, roughly like 75 grams to 90 grams of protein. It doesn't really give you a body weight and all that kind of stuff, but I know that's what I eat anyway. So it's essentially saying have protein with every single meal. And I didn't even really know what protein was back in the day. Like, what is classed as protein? I didn't know lentils had protein. Like, I didn't know all this stuff. So now I know I'm eating protein, and I'm consciously doing it throughout. Well, I've been doing it throughout the last 2 years anyway, but protein with every single meal. So I have the protein oats, I have tofu scrambled, I have a snack, which is like yogurt, another protein source, nuts, peanut butter, and anything just to kind of add that in. And then it also talks about fruit and veg. So getting enough of that. And again, that's something that we eat regularly with our dinner. So we always have fresh vegetables or a fruit sauce. There's things around carbohydrates. It's basically just the same kind of meal plan that I would have with RNT. And it was so good seeing that, because I was like, oh, it's literally telling me and mimicking what I already do. So it makes it a lot easier to maintain healthy habits throughout pregnancy, especially nutrition habits. So that was really good to read, because it just made me feel like, oh, I don't need to change anything. I don't need to eat more. I don't need to change anything. I don't need to eat differently. I don't need to have a different type of food. I've already got it all covered, and it's all in my toolbox. Essentially, I've got this little toolbox that I use, metaphorically. So yeah, that's been really, really helpful. And then again, as you said, with the training as well, just it doesn't really give you specifics. It says more kind of yoga, stretch exercises. But I would say the midwife and the NHS have been incredible.
Yeah,
we both had such a good experience with them. I love speaking to them. I talked to them about the type of birth that I want, and the kind of foods that I'm eating and everything. And they're just like, yeah, crack on. Like, everything's good. You just, they're really on board with everything. They know about hypnobirthing. They want me to do things naturally. There's no pressure. Like, it's just such a pleasant experience going to see my midwife through the NHS. So I'd probably say they're probably the two big things. So making sure your eating habits are in check, and training, which is a game changer. And I'll also document how it goes post baby, right? Like in the recovery process. I'm assuming right now that it will help with that, but again, who knows? Because I might have like I don't know what the birth is going to be like.
Yeah. So with protein, you want to aim for, like, if you're training, at least 1.6 grams per kilo. So the listeners here, if you want to write that down, 1.6 grams per kilo at the very minimum, up to 2 grams per kilo, depending on what phase you're in. But if you're hard training, that's a good sort of indicator. So for you, it's around the 80-gram mark. And then, the carbohydrates and fats will just depend on what your goals are. So if it's pre-pregnancy and you're looking to drop a few pounds, you may want to set your calories at around 12 calories per pound. But once you're pregnant, you probably want to shift out. You don't want to be in fat loss during pregnancy. That's not a healthy thing to do.
No.
So you want to shift your calories up, hit them around maintenance, and then, just work from there. So keep your calories at maintenance, keep your protein high, and then just spread the remaining macronutrients between fats and carbohydrates. And that's a really good way to approach it, whether you're vegetarian, vegan, meat, fish. And one thing I really liked is the NHS approach to plant-based eating. I know I mentioned it earlier. And it's probably a discussion we've had quite often around, like, what's our approach going to be for the kids? Like, are we going to raise plant-based kids? Because you're not completely plant-based. You still eat meat and fish when you're out and about. Is that something we're going to do? And obviously we don't know yet, but my ethos is very much we will raise plant-based kids, and then in the future it's up to them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much on board with that. And
then, in those scenarios where, we've spoken to a couple of parents where they're vegan and they're at birthday parties, and you just sometimes have to be a bit flexible and just let the kids do what they want to do, because you don't want to make them feel estranged or alone or excluded. Yeah. Because the majority of people aren't plant-based, right? So it's just about at home. I think for me it's a no-brainer, and it's really good that the government guidelines now support raising vegan babies, so long as you're meeting your nutritional requirements and guidelines. And the reality is they don't need as much protein. So it's it's not like babies need to get in 200 grams of protein. So they're not going to need shakes or anything like that. You'll get that all naturally. Yeah. So that's not really a concern.
And I think it'll be very easy to do at home. Obviously, there's breastfeeding for the first however many months. And then when they start eating, just give them what we're eating, because all our meals at home are pretty plant-based anyway. So they'll just be digging into that. So it's more for the kind of out and about or parties or things that we'd have to start considering. But I'm very much on board with that. I think it could work. We'll make it work.
So we're recording this 2 weeks away from our fight. There's always that cliche, you see Creed and you see like the girlfriend like scared and sitting in the crowd like, oh my God, what's going to happen? How are you feeling with the fight coming up? And, what do you think about the whole experience?
So I've seen you train hard over the last few months. It's brought a new lease of energy into you. I've never seen you like this. You're going in. Like when I'm just like, oh, you're training 2-3 hours a day. You're going for a run almost every day. You're running different distances. It's so amazing to see, and you're doing great. I'm excited and I'm a little nervous as well, but I know you've got this. I know you've given your heart and your soul into this, and you're going to do the best you can. And I always, when I'm in the gym, I always like look over to the ring and I see, because we tend to go at the same time, and you're always boxing away or like Muay Thai kicking, and I just come and record you. And it's just nice to see the progress that you've made from last year when you started to now. You've really gone in. Yeah. You know what? It's 3 months, but it feels like 3-4 months, but it feels like a much longer time. I remember when we were in Cape Town in the safari, and you were like, okay, I need to practice my kicks. I'm like, okay, cool. And you'd just be kicking against the chair and I'd be recording you, and watching those videos compared to where you are now. So different.
It's night and day.
Yeah. So I'm really excited about it. And I'm really glad that at the fight, we've got a lot of friends and family coming as well, all to cheer you on. So it just gives that extra bit of support. And yeah, I'm excited to see you. And I know you said yesterday, you were like, oh, make sure I want to see you when I'm in the ring. And I was like, okay, I'll come over. Like I'll figure out how I can kind of get closer to the ring. But yeah, I'm very excited, a little nervous, but at the same time not. I know that you've got this. But how are you feeling is a big question.
Yeah, I think I'm getting pretty scared now, to be honest, because as much as I've trained hard, I think I've alluded to it in episode 1 of the Road to the Ring series, and I'm not a natural fighter. I'm not naturally on my balls on my feet. Yeah, all the fight training doesn't come naturally to me. Not necessarily that into flexibility, running. But I'm growing to enjoy it. But the one thing, obviously, I'm not. You can never really. Some people are a bit sick like that, and they do enjoy it. Just getting punched in the face non-stop. And I know, I've heard stories of people doing sparring one session, and they'll be like, "Nah, ain't the same for me," and they won't do it again. And every time I'm in the ring sparring, I'm still bricking myself. Like yesterday was a classic example. We did 50 minutes of pads with my coach. And then he said, all right, we're doing 3 rounds of sparring. I said, who are we sparring with? He said, you see a ghost around you? You see anyone else coming in the ring? I was like, nah. He's like, yeah, me. I'm sparring with me. And whilst he's a pro and he has control of himself, he's still going hard on me. And he was hammering me and just putting so much pressure on me. And afterwards I said to him, he was like, how was that? And I was like, that was brutal. He was like, why? He's like, I was just exhausted. Like I had my heartbeat in my throat. And he said to me, you need to get used to having loads of pressure on you, and you need to get used to people just hitting you non-stop. And, you know, the ability to respond when you're being punched in the face non-stop. And I never really experienced that. Like I wasn't a street fighter when I was growing up, but it's a really like important lesson. It kind of like sums up the whole episode really. If you think about just getting punched in the face, loads of pressure on you, and the ability to just keep calm and continue to move forward. And it kind of echoes the sentiment that we're probably approaching with our pregnancy and just the birth as a whole, in that there'll be a lot of pressure on us and it'll feel stressful, it'll feel tiring, but we just got to, you know, put the positive on it and just keep going. And when he said that to me, I was like, yeah, so true. Like, he was just dropping like all these life lessons every single session. But even like tonight, after this recording, I know I'm sparring tonight. I'm like, oh my God, I've got to get myself through, because you got to get yourself geared up for it. And one thing I've realized though is once I get a few knocks and once I get into it, then there's like this, something flips in my head where it goes into like, all right, I'm just going to go for this now. But it takes a few rounds of warming up. And I've only got 3 rounds on this night, so I've got to make sure that happens quickly.
Yeah.
But the ability to flip the switch and just not care that you're going to get hit and just walk into the punches, eat the punches and just throw bang, 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 is what I'm training myself to do. So in the next 2 weeks, I'm planning a lot of meditation and visualization of the fight. Because I think
we do it together.
Because I think there's a lot to it. Like, you know, you hear about, I'm reading like these Japanese samurai books at the moment from the 1600s, and it talks a lot about this. It talks a lot about rhythm, flow, strategy, fighting as a chess game, but also like going through the motions in your head before it's even happened. It's a very common thing in sports, and I understand why. Because with fighting, as you can do all the pad work you like, you can do all the hitting the heavy bag, but once you're in the ring, everything goes out the window, and you need to make sure that you need to try and make a few things automatic. So a few combos automatic, a few movements automatic. So even when you're super high on adrenaline and you're exhausted and you're breathing out your heart, you can still execute on your game plan. So it's teaching me a lot about things I never really experienced. And this compared to bodybuilding is a different ballgame. Like I was saying on the way here, bodybuilding, all you got to do is put up with the hunger. You just got to put up with the hunger for the last 4 weeks or so. The rest of it's pretty much a breeze, right? Because bodybuilding, you feel really, really good. You feel really good. You're energetic, and then all of a sudden, like the last 4 weeks is like really hard, low energy, hunger's high. But that's what you got to really deal with, right? You just got to go out there, do a couple walks, train a couple of times a week, and just make sure you control your food.
Yeah.
With this, it's like you do all that, and it's not like it doesn't matter, but you can't even prepare for what's going to happen on the night, except for what you can prepare for, if that makes sense, because it's so out of your control.
Yeah.
Again, it comes to the baby analogy. The baby is like, we don't know what's going to happen. So maybe there's a weird thing that I'm here. I'm training for the baby in a weird way. I'm training for the baby by doing a fight.
We can say that.
Because it's completely unpredictable on the night. You know, one bad hit and it could be game over. Or I can land one punch and it's done. And I think that's what because I value control. The fact that I've got no control of that, all I can really do is come to the fight fit. But at the same time, the nerves are going to be so high. I don't know how fit I'm going to be in the ring.
Yeah.
So there's this other element of like, you can burn through so much adrenaline and fatigue just through your own nerves. And then you're in the ring and you're already in your head, you've already gone through like you've already done like 30 miles of running.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is very much out of my comfort zone. And for those who haven't seen the Road to the Ring series, I'd highly recommend watching it. You can see a few sneak peeks of what I've been up to.
And I'm so proud of you for doing this as well. It's something you've talked about for quite a while. Like you've always dropped in, I think I want to try boxing again. I think I want to try boxing. And then I was always like, yeah, go for it if you want, test it out. Because you always have these ideas of doing all these different things. And then I remember you came home and you were like, yeah, I booked a session. but actually a package of 10 is this. Shall I just get 10? And I'm just there like, okay, you've booked one. Maybe just do one at a time for now, just to see. And then all of a sudden you'd book 20 in a row and you're like going for it every single time. So dedicated to it. And it's just nice to see that passion in you come alive again around a different type of training, essentially, right? It's not weights anymore, it's fighting. So yeah, that's been really nice to see. I feel very proud of you for sticking with it, for going for it. Because I was saying to you the other day, you encouraged me to try Muay Thai, which I probably will in the future, but I just don't think I can do sparring or a fight.
Yeah.
It's just not.
I don't think I wanted to.
I just could not do that. And I don't know how you can do it. I think you'd be really
good at Muay Thai though. You're going to be really
long limbs.
You got long limbs. You're a good dancer. You can bounce and hop and twist and all these things naturally. Whereas I got no rhythm. So I think you'll be very good at Muay Thai when it comes to it. Well, stay tuned.
You've got this vision of me, you, and our daughter in a Muay Thai camp in Thailand, right?
Yeah. It's gonna
happen. There you go. That's gonna happen. That's our future trip sorted.
So to wrap up, the Vaghela team's getting bigger. Are you ready?
I am ready. I'm excited. I'm ready. And I just can't wait for this. It's a little miracle happening. So yeah, very excited. How about you?
Yeah, I'm very excited. Nervous, but ready for the challenge.
We'll make it work together.
We'll make it work.